Hey, it's Brian Volk-Weiss. I'm the CEO of the Nacelle Company. I created the toys that made us and some other things. You are listening to the Man Cave, and I hope you enjoy the show.
Welcome to another episode of the Man Cave Chronicles.
Welcome to the party, pal!
You're my boy, Blue!
Yo, Adrian!
A podcast with interviews of amazing guests from the world of pop culture.
Oh, yeah!
TV.
Nice!
Movies.
Oh, I love the movies!
Comedy and more. From deep inside the Man Cave, your host, Elias.
Brian, welcome to the cave.
Thank you for having me.
How are you, man? What's new with you?
Doing all right. You know, trying to keep it all together in the beautiful year of 2020. Nothing to see here.
Right. How did the whole quarantine treat you? I know you've been busy with projects, but how did that whole situation treat you?
You know, to use a word that I've said more in the last 8 months than the rest of my life combined times a million, we have been very blessed. We had a lot of shows in production, and not one of them got shut down. So that was very blessed, very lucky. And you know, getting to see my family every day is really not something I ever thought would happen until I was retired. So it's, you know, for what it is. Listen, I'm not going to lie. I used to have to get on an airplane 4 to 8 times a month. I'm kind of enjoying not doing that either.
Yeah,
So,
but I'm sure you're ready to go back at it.
yes, yeah, we're all. I miss the office very much. I miss seeing my colleagues. I miss that very, very much. But I don't miss the airplanes. But I am ready to start shooting again as we used to.
So yeah, man. So I was doing some research on you, man. So you're a film TV producer. You're the director, founder of a cell company, Comedy Dynamics. You're the creator of these two are one of my favorite shows on Netflix. You got the toys that made us, the movies that made us. Man, you've been stand-up specials. You've been busy.
We have been busy. That's an accurate analysis.
How do you do it, man? How do you keep up with all that?
You know, I get asked that a lot, and as I think with most people, it's like, you know, I just do what I do, and people seem to perceive that as being very busy. Like I'm not trying to be busy. I'm not trying to do it. Like, it's just, you know, I think if I had to guess, like if I could try and psychoanalyze myself, like I think part of it is I like to be busy, and I like to be like, I don't want to be in my office with nothing to do. So the minute anything happens that I'm like, oh, cool, I'll pursue it, because why not? You know, it's always good to have more stuff going on than less. The interesting thing that's happened over the last 5 years or so is, you know, I used to have to develop like 25 things or more to get something greenlit. And now it's almost like 3 to 1 to get something greenlit. And
Wow.
I feel like I haven't psychologically gotten used to that yet. So like I'm still operating from the mindset of for every success, I have 25 failures. And now it's like for every success, I have 2 failures. So that doesn't mean I'm like, oh shit, I can take my foot off the gas. I'm not going to, that's just not my personality.
How often do you get emails or phone calls about your next project? Do you have an idea for your next one? Do you have an idea for another one?
Well, I don't get emails asking me if I have ideas for my next project, but I mean, between 2 and 20 times a day, I get emails or DMs of other people telling me their ideas and why I should produce their ideas. That's a daily thing.
I see. So let's get to know a little bit more about you. You're originally from New York, right?
Yeah, from Queens.
Yeah. How was it as a kid growing up there?
It was the best, man. It was the best.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, you know, I was a kid, so I'm sure if I was older, I may have felt a bit different. But you know, it was like, it's a weird thing to say, but it's like it was cozy and safe, but still had a real edge of danger and violence. And I'm sure if I had been badly hurt, or my friends or family were hurt, I would not look at it as nostalgically as I do. But because all of us got through it, I got mugged a few times and stuff like that. But, they just took my money or my jacket or whatever. But like, it was just kind of fun, it was like there's so many rules now. I got 3 kids and again, it's like I look at my kids and I'm like, oh my God, thank God it's changed. But yeah, it was kind of fun.
How old are your kids?
No
I
rules,
got 2
literally
kids.
no rules.
I got 2 kids. I said I got 2 kids myself. How old are your kids?
6, 5, and 2.
Oh yeah, so you're around my age. I have a 5-year-old and a just turned 3-year-old, and they're a lot of work.
They are a lot of work. A lot of work. Holy moly!
So, how old were you when you kind of had an idea that you wanted to get into the entertainment industry? What was your goal at first?
It's such a cheesy answer, but I swear it's true. I saw Star Wars when I was like barely 3. And the best analogy I can give you, like, I did not know what the word documentary meant. I didn't even know the word documentary. But if you analyze my perception of the movie, it's what you and I today would call a documentary. Like, I thought it was real. So like for a year, I was telling people be like, hey, Brian, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I was like, I want to work for the rebellion. I want to be an X-Wing pilot, and it started to, freak out my mom a bit. So she got me this book, for kids. I still have it, about the making of Star Wars. And pretty much ever since I saw that book, this is all I've ever wanted to do. And I went to college, because my parents wanted me to go to college. And, I drove out to LA the next day.
Wow. Just like that, huh?
Yeah.
What was the reaction of your family when you did that?
It took them about 10 years to be like, oh, I think he's okay. My mom wanted me to become, the cliche doctor or lawyer or something like that. But then I remember at one point about 10, 12 years after getting here, my dad was like a lawyer, and he was at like a restaurant with all these lawyers, and all of them were complaining about their kids needing money. And my dad suddenly realized I had never asked them for any money. And he was like, he said to me, he's like, it made me think maybe you're doing okay. And I'm like, yeah, Dad, I'm doing pretty good. The irony was when he asked me that question, I really was already doing well. I really struggled, for 8, 9 years. But yeah, once when I started doing pretty okay, that's when he asked me. He was like, yeah, you seem to be doing all right.
When you first moved out to LA, what was one of the first things you worked on?
The first thing I worked on was this independent film. I don't even know if it got released ever, called Going Back to Cali. And this was a very funny situation. The director and producers, they decided for whatever reason, we are going to make an African-American version of Swingers. And they literally were making an African-American version of Swingers. They would at night watch Swingers, and then during the day, basically reshoot it, but with Black actors. So I worked on that. That was literally, I got out here July 1st, 98. And and that movie shot in Vegas. And that, I was working on that about 7 or 8 days later. So I did a lot of independent stuff for a long time. Not that long, actually, about 6 months. And then I worked on Castaway. I was a production assistant in the wardrobe department. And then I met a manager. I basically was like, okay, I gotta like everything I'm doing is like after the movie was greenlit, I want to get a job where I'm working on stuff like before it's greenlit, so I could have like some say in what's getting made and what I'm working on. So I basically stopped there. I was doing well. I was even offered a job on The Grinch That Stole Christmas, like the Jim Carrey one. And I started interning for free with a producer. And then through him, I met a manager. Through the manager, I got a job. Then I became a manager. And I was a manager for about 10 years, representing pretty much exclusively comedians. And then the rest is history. I eventually retired from management, and now we're doing all right.
Yeah. Speaking of, was that with Barry Katz?
Yes,
Yeah,
that's
he's
exactly
got.
what it was.
Yeah, he has I don't know if he still does it or not, but for a while he had a podcast going on talking about the business. It was great to listen to that.
Yes, I don't know if he's doing it either, but it was wonderful.
Yeah. So I saw that you managed some pretty big comedians. How was it like managing people like Jeff Ross and Dane Cook, and you got a list going on there?
Like with any job, there were good days and bad days. It was a really weird job. I mean, being a manager is tough, like really tough. I always say one of the greatest accomplishments I will have in my life is that I got to retire and stay in show business. Most managers don't get to do that. Like when they're done, they're done.
But you also, in a way, kind of helped you produce like the comedy shows too and everything.
Well, I mean, not in a way. I mean, it literally was the foundation behind the modern version of our company. So
yeah,
I would produce 1 or 2 specials a year for clients. And then I was like, well, why don't I just do this for non-clients? And that's how everything came together.
That's awesome. Who's been your favorite comedian, you think?
Joke-wise, or that I've worked with?
Worked with.
Man, I don't have like one, but I mean, I love Bill Burr. I love D.L. Hughley. Jim Gaffigan's like, I still can't believe I get to work with him. I said Gary Gulman. Beth Stelling is amazing. I mean, most comedians are some degree of very nice and awesome. There's very few that are jerks.
Yeah, I can see that. I just talked to Nicole Birch earlier this week. I had her on the podcast about her new show, and I know that you helped her with her first special.
Yeah, we distributed it.
Yeah. So yeah, she was great to talk to. I'm actually releasing that episode in about a week or two. So let's talk about the toys that made us, man. What inspired you to create this show? Like, how did you get the idea for this?
The original inspiration was I was at a Borders Books, about 9 years ago. And I don't know why anymore, but I was looking for information about Transformers toys. And there were no books in the store about Transformers, but there was like 8,000 books about like the War of 1812. And I'm like, and no offense to the War of 1812, but I'm like, no one is like really affected by that war day to day anymore. Like, but Transformers is like revered by probably over 1 billion people. Why is there nothing in here about Transformers? And then the more I looked around, I'm like, there's nothing about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. There's nothing about G.I. Joe. And like the only books they had about toys were Star Wars and Barbie. But even those books, they really weren't books. They were like price guides. So that was the inspiration. And from that moment to the moment I found out Netflix was going to do it was 7 years.
Wow. Did you pitch that anywhere at first, or
yeah,
how did that?
I pitched it everywhere. And I basically thought I had set it up twice, once at History Channel, once at Nat Geo. Like we were budgeting, like there were contracts going back and forth, and literally at the last minute, it didn't happen twice.
Wow. So growing up, like what were some of your favorite toys? I know you mentioned Transformers.
I mean, my favorite toy, bar none, was Star Wars. Like Star Wars is always in its own category. So after Star Wars, it would probably be Transformers, G.I. Joe are tied. Maybe G.I. Joe is a little bit ahead of Transformers now that I think about it. And then, the one toy I always forget about, but ironically, it's the only toy I literally have never stopped playing with, is Lego. So, I mean, I've in college, like I've never stopped buying Lego sets.
You still buy the theme movie Legos?
Well, yeah. I mean, I buy, Batman, and I have have some Batman and quite a bit of Star Wars. Not as much as you would probably think, but I got I love the architecture series. I'm just looking at my collection. I love a lot of their space stuff. Like I got the International Space Station. I got the women of NASA, space shuttle set, all that. A lot of my sets are actually from Lego Ideas.
Mm. So you're a huge toy collector. Is there like one piece that stands out the most that's like your favorite?
No, I mean, dude, I got over 2,000 toys. Like, there's no one toy that's my favorite, but of the 2,000 plus, there's probably 10 that, like, if there was a fire and they were destroyed, it would like depress me for the rest of my life. Whereas the other 1,990, I'd be okay about losing if I unfortunately had to.
Yeah. Now, do you have toys that are like still in mint condition where you don't open them? How hard is it for your kids not to touch those things?
So this is funny. All my friends make fun of me for this. All my toy friends, especially my toy friends who own toy stores, like I'm kind of anti-box. And the reason is like it's the toy that gives me joy. So like I love Optimus Prime. I want to see Optimus Prime. I don't want to see the box. And then I hate paying for something that I don't care about. So I'm always like, does anybody know where I could get one of these? But no box. And I'm like, apparently the only toy collector who's like that. And then to answer your second question, for whatever reason, my kids who fuck up everything in the house, I mean, they just fucking trash everything. For some reason, they are very respectful of my collection. And like, they know there's like one or two things it's cool for them to touch, and that's all they touch.
That's awesome. Is there a toy that you haven't found yet that you're looking forward to on your collection?
Yeah, so the number one, listen, the number one thing I want, the only reason I don't have it is because like a shitty version of it is 80 grand. It's like sometimes 120, 140 grand. And that's a figure called Vlix from Star Wars Droids. So if you remove that from the equation, and the only reason I don't have it is financial, there's a great, as Toys That Made Us got going, I became more and more like deep dive down the rabbit hole, like collecting weirder and weirder stuff. The number one thing that I want that I don't have is there was in the 80s, early 80s, Colgate ran a campaign where if you bought a tube of toothpaste, you got a Star Wars figure as well. And they did one of those with Bib Fortuna, which just always cracked me up because he notoriously had like the worst teeth in Star Wars. So that is the number one thing I don't have that I want. That's not, six figures.
Good. So you've had a few seasons of the show. What's been like your favorite episode out of all of them, or do you have like a few that stands out also?
Star Wars is my favorite episode. It's my favorite episode. Star Wars is always in a world by itself. I mean, I love the episode, but we got to recreate ILM. So, I mean, that was just wonderful. But listen, I love the He-Man episode. I love the Barbie episode. I love the Star Trek episode. I mean, if there's like the Star Trek episode, I just got to do what I wanted to do. And I feel like it was a good Star Trek documentary as well as a good Star Trek toys documentary. I don't know if anyone else agrees with me, and obviously I'm very biased, but I love that episode.
How did you decide what toys you wanted to do for this? Was it just the love of the toys that you had for you, or did you have like other people with ideas also?
I try to balance it between two variables. The first was like, what toys do we have to do? And then I should save some for future seasons if I'm lucky enough to get future seasons, which thank God I did that, because that's what's kept pulling the show forward.
Now, do we know, are we going to see any more seasons?
All I can say to that is my cliched but accurate, stay tuned.
All right, sounds good. Now, from that, you made the spinoff, The Movies That Made Us.
Yes.
How'd you come up with that? Well, how did you come up with that idea? Like, what were you doing when that idea came to your head?
Well, it's really funny what happened. After Toys That Made Us was successful, Netflix asked me to come in and pitch them spinoffs.
All right.
So my team and I spent well over 100 hours, I mean, maybe over 200 hours, putting together a tape and a deck for the games that made us. And we worked on that for about a month. About 48 hours before we went in for the meeting, and I don't even know why I did this in retrospect, I was like, maybe we should also pitch the movies that made us. Maybe I could get them to greenlight 2 shows. So all I did, we spent about 2 hours doing this. We made a poster, our art department, of the very famous cliched image of Bruce Willis from the poster of Die Hard, but we CGI'd Frank Sinatra's head onto Bruce Willis's body, because if you've seen the episode, Frank Sinatra was in Die Hard is the sequel to another movie. A lot of people don't know that. And Frank Sinatra was contractually obligated, if they were going to make more, to play John McClane again. So that's all I did. I went in with a cool, funny poster of Frank Sinatra on Bruce Willis's body in front of Nakatomi Tower. And the meeting was an hour long, and they greenlit movies and did not greenlight games.
And are you excited? Were you excited that got picked before games?
Yes, because to be honest with you, ironically, I'm much more of a movie person than a game. I like games. Games are great, but I'm more of a movie guy.
Yeah. So how did you decide what movies were going to be for the first season? Because you did Dirty Dancing, Home Alone, Ghostbusters, and obviously Die Hard, because that was your pitch. But like, what made you pick those movies for first? And how come you didn't go with Star Wars at first, with the love of your Star Wars?
Star Wars for me is, if we do it, like I can't cover Star Wars in 50 minutes or less.
Right.
Like I need at least 2 hours, and to be honest with you, I probably need 4. So that's why Star Wars isn't in there. The reason we picked those movies was, as always, I wanted to do movies that I was passionate about, but, I got a business to run. I also picked movies that I thought would do well. So Home Alone was a no-brainer. It's a comedy. It's beloved. Die Hard was a no-brainer. Like you said, it was the pitch. Ghostbusters was the perfect movie because it was sci-fi, fantasy, and comedy. So 4 quadrants. And Dirty Dancing, the nickname of Dirty Dancing is Star Wars for girls. And that's, a testament to its popularity and size. And I've always liked the movie. I used to watch it all the time as a kid. So and Netflix approved them. And then, unlike Toys That Made Us, where Netflix really just defers to me, on movies that made us, Netflix had a ton of data, obviously, on how movies do. So, I sent them my list, and then they cross-referenced it with their data. And that's, that was a part of it as well.
So you mentioned you enjoyed Star Wars growing up. What were like some other movies that didn't make the list for the first season?
Well, it's funny. They're we're making more right now. So a lot.
I did see that on Instagram. You announced season 2.
Yeah. So RoboCop and Aliens were definitely supposed to be in season 1 had it been more episodes. So especially RoboCop. Those are 2 of my favorite movies of all time. So the one movie we still have not started on yet is 89 Batman and Terminator 1. Once those hopefully get greenlit, then, a lot of my favorites are starting to get done. And then hopefully they'll let me do 4 episodes on Star Wars.
What do you think about, because I'm an 80s guy too. It's like, what do you think about like Back to the Future and Karate Kid? Do you think we'll see that?
Well, Back to the Future is in production right now. Karate Kid, I don't know about. It might be too small. But because of Cobra Kai, Now it might be perfect.
There you go. There you go. So during COVID, you had another show on Amazon, a toy store near you. How'd you come up with that idea?
Well,
What's that?
basically, I was like, when COVID hit, a lot of my, I'm friends with people that own toy stores.
Yeah.
So like, I'm hearing from, these guys who own stores, which half of them are husband and wives. So there's a lot of women too. But like, I was talking to Kyle at Black Cat Comics in Burbank, who's one of my 2 home stores. And, he's like, well, quarantine, da-da-da. And I said to him, I go, because no one had ever thought about this in our lifetime. I'm like, well, dude, what happens if there's a quarantine? And he's like, well, I don't have money coming in, but my expenses stay the same. And I'm like, oh, that's bad. So that got me thinking, what could we do to help support the stores? And as I own a production company, I was like, maybe we could make a show about the stores to help raise their profile and make them money. And that was the inspiration.
How many episodes did you do that?
We don't laugh. We're scheduled to do 50.
Wow. That's
We've
good for you.
5. What's that?
I said that's good for you.
Well, it's good. Yeah, it's good for everybody.
Yeah.
We put out 5 already. The next 5 drop. Every season is 5 episodes. The season 2 drops on Christmas Day. And then I'm hoping to do 15 next year.
Wow. I miss toy stores. The only toy store we had, well, obviously it was Toys R Us, and that closed a few years ago. But before that was just KB, and that was about it. And my daughter loved when I brought her there. And now she's like, we drive by, it's a Halloween store.
It's so sad.
I know.
It's so sad.
And I loved going there because, I'm not a huge toy collector like you, but I like to buy I used to buy sports figures and leave them in boxes. I'm the opposite. I like to keep things in boxes, or I turn around and I have my Ghostbusters Peter Venkman in a box. I found it a couple of weeks ago at Target and I picked it up.
Nice.
It's I like to collect that kind of stuff. Movie figures and stuff like that. That's what I'm into.
That's good stuff. I got a bunch of that too.
Yeah. So what's next for you? Any other projects that you haven't announced yet that are coming out?
Well, I can't announce anything that's not announced, but we have a show on Disney Plus that we're partnered with Dwayne Johnson on called Behind the Attraction. That comes out in the first part of 2021. Season 2 of the show we do for BET Plus called All the Way Black. That comes out in, when does that come out? I think November 8th, actually. And like I said, Toy Store Near You comes out on Christmas Day. And we're working on some other stuff. I can't. And then we have movies. We've called it holiday movies. We got the holiday movies that come out on December 1st, and that's Elf and Nightmare Before Christmas.
Oh, that's awesome. How about any comedy? Any new comedy specials coming out?
We, due to COVID, have not been able to shoot, so we've been acquiring a lot of specials. And the last special we did before COVID is also coming out in December. And that's a show we produced with Amy Poehler called Nate.
You need your own streaming platform, I think.
What's that?
I think you need your own streaming platform.
One day.
Is that the plan?
Not yet, but it could be.
Brian, how can the listeners find you on social media?
I'm under my own name on Instagram and Facebook. I don't do Twitter or whatever. So if you got both, I'd go with Instagram. If you don't, go with Facebook. But yeah, it's my name, and hopefully I don't annoy too many people with my posts.
They're great posts. It's all about toys and movies.
Thanks, man. I try.
Yeah. Brian, man, thank you for coming on the show. This was fun.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
That's a wrap. That's a wrap, everybody. That's a wrap.
Thanks for listening to the Man Cave Chronicles podcast.
I finally get my man cave.
You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at the MCC Podcast and our website, themccpodcast.com. Until next time.